So this is your melt and pour base. I'm using a shea butter base, and I got this from brambleberry.com. I don't think they will mind me mentioning it. It's very nice, and it has excellent qualities for moisturizing the skin, and it's great if you have sensitive skin, in my experience. So they come in cubes mostly, is the way I buy it, in 50-pound boxes, and then I cut it down. And then here's some handmade pine sap lotion that, or not lotion rather, but pine sap soap that I have made, just simply infusing this wonderful shea butter base with this melted pine sap over here that you can see is melting away. And it gets dark red if it's not real pure as it's melting too. And I'll have to strain that through a cheesecloth. And then I can simply add that to my melted soap, which I have going over here in a larger crock pot. Let's see here. My soap gear is still dirty because I was making soap earlier today. Make sure and clean it between each major soap batching. I have spices and all kinds of stuff on my crock pot because I like to make cinnamon soap and all kinds of things. But here's the soap cubes melting. It takes a couple hours on low. You can turn it up to high and pulse it back to low to get it hot. You want this soap really melted, and I'll show you when it's melted here in a minute. And you can see the little bits of nutmeg and cinnamon and ginger that are left over in my crock pot from my earlier batch of spice soap, which I want to mention ginger, which is kind of a white color. You can put a lot of powdered ginger into your soaps, and it won't stain your bathtub, and things like nutmeg and cinnamon will. So ginger powder up to half a cup in a large crock pot like this full of soap is a wonderful addition for the skin as well, and that follows traditional Chinese medical theory for healing the skin. And these pine soaps, you can also mix other spices in with the pine, but I suggest staying away from things like essential oils because it will decrease the froth. And this time when making pine sap soap, I did not use rubbing alcohol liniment and put it in with this and let it evaporate out like I did before. I'm actually using pure pine sap, which I'm going to clarify and put right in here, because the alcohol liniment that I used to add the extracts into the soap last time decreased the frothiness of the soap. And also, into a big batch of soap like this, if you want it to be a little harder and you want to put herbs in it, and especially if you're making hand soaps that you want to be harder, more perfumey, last longer. What am I thinking as the pitch melts here? I'm losing my mind. Cut again. You can always use beeswax in your soap to harden it. And over here I have a kettle of more soap cubes melting because I make soap a lot at a time. And I have beeswax melting in a electro pot here, and it's just starting to get hot. And I'll push the top down here so you can see the beeswax, woo, rushing in as it gets hot. And you can add up to about a half a cup of beeswax into a large crock pot of soap like the big one there that I have melting, and it will make your soap harder. And but like I said, it will decrease the frothiness of the soap, just like adding rubbing alcohol based liniment herbs and things like that. This is pine pitch that I've collected from big gobs off trees, and I'm getting ready to make handmade pine pitch soap from this, as you can see, very large mass of different masses that was oozing out of the trees earlier this year. And I've kept it in the freezer, and I've thawed it out and kept it out for about a week, and it's good and thawed. Obviously it's been out of the freezer for a week, but it's also not hard like you'd expect after being frozen. And so I'm worming off a piece here. It was really sticky when I collected it, and it's still very sticky. And so we're going to go over to the crock pot, which is getting hot here, and you've got to wear gloves to do this. It's very sticky. So taking the pine pitch, and I've got some other softer pieces that I've picked off, and I'm putting it in the kind of small crock pot here. See my hand size? It's kind of a small crock pot. And this pitch is getting warm. And when it's warm, I'll strain it. I'll get it pretty darn hot, and then I'll strain it through a cheesecloth or an old piece of sheet, or an old pillowcase will work. And you want to strain it to put it in your soap because it will have scratchy bits and particles of bark and things like that. You can also torch it and melt it off the globules on the tree and melt it in kind of pure form right into a bucket. But I prefer to do it this way because I think it's more rugged and natural, and you kind of make an infusion of all the different pitches that seeped out of the different trees this way, and you have several trees worth of pitch, and that means something in Chinese medicine. So this video is getting a little long, and this pitch is going to take, because it's on low, probably at least an hour or two, or maybe even 3 hours to get to the point where I can filter it through a thin cotton cloth or cheesecloth, and then I can add it to my very hot melted soap and make sure it cooks for a few minutes and fully disperses into your hot soap, and then you will have pine pitch soap. Now I'm making a lot of homemade soap, many pounds, so I need a lot of pitch. Welcome. This is my pine pitch soap tutorial, and this is some really rugged pine pitch soap that has a lot of pitch that was left in the bottom of the crock pot last time I made it, and so I cut the remnants into bars, and this will be my super strong pine pitch soap for itchy skin. And when I make a new batch, it will only be about half as strong, but I'll mark these as extra strong, and they'll be more of a hand soap for ultra dry, cracked, chapped hands. A handmade cosmetic treatment of pine pitch soap. Alright, I'm going to demonstrate very quickly how to make a very fast cosmetic formula, a nail dip treatment from very simple 2 ingredients that can really increase the strength of your nails and your cuticles. So if you're having trouble, if you have a lot of chemical exposure, for example, or if you've been painting your nails too much and they don't look very good, this is related to old world veterinary medicine, and it's still used today to strengthen the hooves of horses and things like that. They use kind of like a paint, they paint the nails, or the hooves rather, with pitch, which is what this is. Fresh lump of pine pitch, pretty good sized, fits in my hand, lump of pine pitch in a small glass jar here. It fills up about 30% of the jar. And what I'm going to do is just simply add 70% alcohol till it's covered. Just leave about a 1/4 inch at the top of the jar so that it doesn't splash all over when you try to open it. Pop on the lid. This was an old tuna jar, obviously, that I have washed. Seal it tight. Then you can see the pitch in the alcohol, and it will immediately start to dissolve, and you'll see within minutes, you'll see the water go murky. The water's already going murky. And it'll totally dissolve in a matter of days, and then you can just dip your hands into it and let it dry, and you can do that every day. And it will really increase the strength of your nails. It's almost like resin coating, like you do furniture for your nails. And that is my really easy nail cosmetic treatment for nail strengthening, made only of 70% rubbing alcohol and pine pitch. Thank you for watching. Oh, another thing I didn't explain about this wonderful pine pitch in rubbing alcohol extract is that it's a natural liniment for pain, but you'd want to dilute it with quite a bit more rubbing alcohol for this purpose. If you find it too sticky, simply add 25% more rubbing alcohol or 50% more rubbing alcohol and dilute this pine pitch liniment down so that you can handle the stickiness of it on your nails. I like it strong like this, and then I just dip my fingertips into it, every day, basically. Just keep it in your bathroom. It is sticky, but that's part of the reason why it coats your nails so well. Pine pitch, by the way, is called song ji in Chinese medicine, and this is a pitch nodule. The pitch will naturally ooze out of the trees. in the spring, mostly, is when I collect it, because that's when it's most soft and gooky. And I like to collect it not by tapping the tree, but by simply collecting the natural nodes. And the shore pine pitch where I live on the Oregon coast is extremely sappy, kind of like Georgia pine is known for being very sappy. And so the shore pine pitch really makes this excellent, wonderful aromatic liniment. So after 2 or 3 days, this is what has become of the pine pitch liniment that I made in rubbing alcohol. It becomes, since it's so strong, you'd want to actually dilute this even for a nail dip. This one's really strong. So put it in a bigger jar and dilute this about 50% with more rubbing alcohol, and you have a perfect nail dip. It's almost milky in color because there's so much pitch in with the rubbing alcohol here. Here they are. Here's the beautiful handmade pine pitch in shea butter base soaps that I have made. They are a wonderful cosmetic treatment for dry, chapped, irritated skin. Now, normally they wouldn't have so many impurities in them, but I left my crock pot a little dirty from an earlier batch of spices, so they have a little bit of spice, a little bit of bark bits in them from an earlier batch of rugged hand soap I made, where I left the pitch more rugged and less filtered. So it had more bark in it, so it made a good, almost pumice-like hand soap. For the body, you want to do this, and you want to filter your pine pitch through a piece of pillowcase is what I used, and I used heat-resistant gloves when I filtered the hot pitch right into the hot melted soap base. And I'll show you that part either later or earlier in the video, just depending on where this photo ends up. But these are the finished soaps. They do have some beeswax in them, and they're just fantastic for people who have sensitive, delicate skin, who do not tolerate store-bought scented soaps very well.